Let's talk about anger. I didn't realize it for many years, but growing up with a narcissist absolutely warped the ways in which I deal with anger. My own anger and the anger of people around me, whether they're upset with me or with someone else. For many years, in fact, I prided myself on the fact that I was completely level-headed and calm, no matter what sort of provocation was going on around me. I worked well under extreme pressure. I almost always reacted very rationally and calmly in situations that would have had other people screaming profanity at each other. I don't even use profanity. Even when people were intentionally provoking me, I stayed calm. I didn't show any anger. I didn't even feel any anger. I thought it was almost like a superpower for me to always be in control and always remain calm when people around me were furious and out of control. About 15 years ago, around the same time that I started learning about my father's narcissism and how it had affected me, maybe it was 12, 13, 14, I don't remember exactly, but it was sometime in the same period. Something really odd started happening to me. I remember the first time it happened because it felt so bizarre to me. I was driving down the road one afternoon. I was on I-459 just south of Birmingham. Nothing unusual was going on, but I suddenly realized that I felt raging anger of the sort that I might never have actually felt before. I didn't know what I was angry about. I just knew that I wanted to scream and shout and express anger in a way that I never had before. In the months ahead, this sort of thing happened to me multiple times. Fortunately, it never happened around other people. It never happened in a way that I was taking anger out on other people. But slowly it dawned on me what was happening. As I started coming to understand how my father's narcissism had affected me and how he had bullied me and crushed my spirit as a child, I realized that I was incredibly angry. Not about anything happening in my life at the time, but about decades of anger that I had repressed. For the first time in my life, I was finding short periods of time when it unconsciously felt safe enough for me to experience anger that I had bottled up for my entire life. My ability to feel anger when it's appropriate has gotten much better since then, but it can still be difficult for me. When I feel anger, I feel guilty. I feel as though I'm going to be in trouble if I show that I'm upset with others. All because my childhood taught me that the only safe way to deal with my anger was to hide it from others. And that required hiding it from myself. I first apparently started hiding it from my father, but that eventually required me to hide it from everyone. It's not my own anger that I have trouble dealing with. When other people are angry or upset, I feel responsible for fixing things. And I've come to understand that a lot of people who are victims of narcissistic abuse have felt the same way. I feel a sense of panic if someone around me is angry. I feel as though I'm about to be in trouble again. I've told stories of this sort before. I've written about it. But this is typical of my first response to other people's bad moods. I remember walking into the office of someone I knew several years ago, someone who was normally a happy person, and this person was in a foul mood. He was snappy, and there was something in the air that felt dangerous to me. I could feel my heart start racing slightly. I felt mild panic. This guy wasn't angry with me. He wasn't upset with me. His dark mood had nothing to do with me. But I immediately shifted gears inside. Instead of being a confident adult dealing with another adult, I felt like a child who needed to placate an angry person so that I wouldn't get into trouble. I was walking on eggshells once again, just as I constantly did as a child, especially when my father had such bad moods. I was there less than half an hour, but I spent the entire time trying to break through his bad mood and cheer him up. It wasn't just that I was trying to help him. I was playing the role I learned with my father. I was desperately trying to stem the anger of a volatile man before he could explode on me. When you grow up with an angry parent, you can develop a sixth sense about how to act in order to protect yourself. That was my experience anyway, and I find that a lot of people in similar situations have done similar things. I didn't consciously decide to do this. It was just a survival skill for me. So it took me years to realize that other people didn't necessarily develop that sense in the same way that I did. In some ways, I've been like a child who had to learn how to deal with some new emotion. But that learning has come years after most healthy children have learned how to deal with any anger. I've learned that it's okay for me to be angry at others at times, even people who I love, as long as I handle the anger in healthy ways. This means that people who are close to me need to understand that the way I interact with anger probably isn't the same as the way they interact with anger. It requires me to be proactive in explaining my reactions to others, not because they're required to repress their own anger, of course, but just so they will understand how I will feel their anger, how I will process their anger differently than other people do. And so they can understand how difficult it is for me to give myself permission to express negative thoughts and feelings toward them at times. I suspect that I will always react to anger in myself and others very differently than most people do. But I've learned that I can teach myself, even far into my adult years, that being angry is a normal part of life. I don't have to experience flashbacks to a screaming and angry father anymore. Someone who terrified me with the veins bulging from his rage-filled face. I don't have to constantly feel as though I'm in trouble or that something terrible is about to happen to me. As strange as it might sound to emotionally healthy people, it's been tough to learn that loving and caring people can get angry with each other. But that doesn't mean that they hate one another. And it doesn't mean that they're going to do abusive things to each other. For those of us who were raised under the influence of a malignant narcissist, that can be a very powerful lesson to learn.